Hello everybody and welcome to your post-match podcast brought to you by the Liverpool Echo in association with our sponsors NordVPN. I'm your host Theo Squires and we're live here at Anfield where Liverpool have just beaten Barnsley 4-1 to progress to the fourth round of the FA Cup. They will face Brighton and Hove Albion in the next round. Happy days for the Reds. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook, so get your comments in, get your questions in. We'll have a nice little natter after Liverpool progress in the FA Cup. FA Cup, the score's probably a little bit more emphatic than the performance suggested, but nice enough from the Reds. They started really quite promising. Two absolute screamers goal-wise from Dominic Szoboszlai and Jeremy Frimpong. Szoboszlai leathers it into the top corner from about 30 yards after getting the ball from McAllister, and then McAllister's the provider again for Jeremy Frimpong, giving the ball to him out on the right wing. He cuts inside onto his left foot, gets into the box and buries it again into the top corner. Goalkeeper Murphy Cooper stood no chance. But then Szoboszlai went from the sublime to the stupid. Really good defending from him initially to get back, steal the ball away from Adam Phillips. He ran into his own box and tried to backheel it to Georgi Mamardashvili. Made a complete hash of the backheel, didn't make enough contact, and Phillips, the boyhood Liverpool fan who was in the academy for many, many years before leaving the club, probably about 10 years ago roughly, but yeah, he's gifted a tap in right in front of the Kop. I understand Barnsley manager Conor Hourihane is not too impressed with Dominic Szoboszlai, saying it was arrogant, so look out for those quotes if you've not already seen them. They will be on the Echo website tomorrow. In the second half, Liverpool had to wait until quite late on really to seal the victory, but it came from the substitutes. Hugo Ekitike came on, making his return from injury, and he was joined by Florian Wirtz. The third goal comes from Wirtz. Curtis Jones plays it through to Ekitike. Nice little back heel from him. See, back heels can be good, Dominic. Learn to do in the right place, and then it goes to Wirtz. He curls it into the corner in front of the Kop for a lovely goal. And then the fourth one, deep into stoppage time, Szoboszlai with a nice pass over the top down the right hand side to Florian Wirtz. He crosses it low and Ekitike is gifted with the tap-in at the far post. So nice emphatic 4-1 victory for the Reds to progress in the FA Cup. Happy days. I see a few comments have come in, so let's see what your guys are saying. The score doesn't reflect the performance at all, says Kevin. Yeah, performance for the most part was poor, second best to a team in the 17th in League One who were far more imaginative and creative on the ball until they tired late on. I think you're being a little bit harsh, Kevin. Like, Liverpool weren't horrendous, they weren't brilliant. They didn't find themselves under that much pressure. There weren't too many chances. Mamardashvili had to make one or two decent saves. Woodwork was hit at both ends as well. Virgil van Dijk was denied by the crossbar and the keeper, Murphy Cooper. He had a volley tipped onto the bar by the goalkeeper. And Barnsley took the lead after like 30 seconds with a nice header from their captain, Davis Keller-Dunn, but it came back off the post. I think that was it for the Woodwork. There might have been a third one in there, but there were chances, and Liverpool could have scored a couple more. Not the best performance, not the worst performance, but score, yes, it flattered him a little bit, but it wasn't a totally dreadful performance. Anyone else commenting at the moment? We need to keep this up, says Daniil. Gideon's happy with the 4-1 scoreline. As I said, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. Get your comments in. We can talk about some individual performances. Bit of injury news as well. Rio Engamoa, he looked like he'd done a muscle injury there, so he joined the injury list. Tried to keep the ball in play in front of the Kop, and he stretched a little bit trying to keep it in play. He had to come off. He was holding, I think, his groin. He was back on the pitch after the final whistle, and he looked okay when he was walking off then. Hopefully nothing too major, just a little tweak. Maybe keeps him out for a week or two. We'll see. We'll get an update from Arne Slot in the post-match press conference. But the more positive injury news, as I've said, Hugo Ekitike is back. Got his goal, lovely finish from him. But Wataru Endo is back as well. We've not seen him since the 3-3 draw away at Leeds, I think, at the start of December with an ankle injury. But he was back on the bench today. Didn't actually make his comeback, but he was unused. But he's there, he's in the squad, so it bolsters the numbers somewhat. Liverpool obviously were heavily, weren't heavily depleted, but they lost Conor Bradley, didn't they, away at Arsenal last week. And we know now he's going to be out for the season with a serious knee injury. Alexander Isak's already out with that fractured leg, and Giovanni Leone's out for the season with an ACL injury. So maybe Engamoa will join that list. But at least Ekitike and Endo are back. Daniil says he wants to see Rio start more games, but as I said, he's not going to now, is he? If he is injured for a little bit. It's unfortunate for him. It wasn't the best performance from him. I've seen him be much more effective. He tried to be a bit tricky at times, tried to beat his man, linking up well with his teammates, but certainly not as influential in the final third as we've seen him in the past. Not the worst player by any means, but not the best either. Another disappointing performance, I suppose, from Federico Chiesa. He didn't really do a lot. Joe Gomez. It's always the case with Joe Gomez, isn't it? When he's not been in the team for a while, he comes back in and he looks rusty. It takes a while to get back up to speed, and when he's the backup right back, the backup centre back, it's hard for him to get that rhythm. He was taken off around the hour mark along with Chiesa and someone else, Jeremy Frimpong, because Dominic Szoboszlai ended the game at right back. Whether that was punishment for his mistake for the Barnsley goal, I could not possibly comment. But as I've said, Conor Horan, the Barnsley manager, is not too impressed with the Hungarian. We are actually on air a little bit later than we'd like to be for these post-match podcasts, so apologies for that. It's because we had to first contend with the music over the tannoy system here at Anfield, which we normally have to do anyway. You might hear it sometimes on the start of our show, but then many lawnmowers. I think we had that with the last post-match podcast. Was it after Leeds, the 0-0 draw, where the audio wasn't great? We've had a few technical issues, technical difficulties, problems with the audio. We wanted to get it right. There were 9 lawnmowers on the pitch at one point, so we were waiting for them all to disappear, do their business, and hopefully you can hear the benefits of it now. Hopefully the audio is a lot better. But yeah, let us know. You can email us, or you can comment if you're watching live, whatever. You know where we are, and we'll try and make the post-match podcast as well good for you as we can. Michael Dixon has commented, going Alonso, fingers crossed, which is of course referring to the fact that former Liverpool midfielder Xavi Alonso left Real Madrid by mutual consent ahead of kick-off here at Anfield today. It was probably when I was arriving at the stadium, so we're talking about 5 o'clock-ish. But yeah, he's been replaced by his former Liverpool teammate Alvaro Arbeloa, and we know that Xavi Alonso has been linked to the Liverpool hot seat many a time, but Arne Slot is he's pretty safe in his job at the moment. Obviously there was that rough spell over the autumn, but Liverpool are now 11 games unbeaten, which is easy to forget because they haven't been at the best at times, but there is no sign of Arne Slot losing his job. When Liverpool do change the manager, whenever that might happen in the future, and if Alonso is available, he is an option. Sure, he's an option. He's always going to be talked about, but I would not expect to see a Liverpool managerial change anytime soon. One thing to keep attention on, though, is the fact that Slot will have a year left on his contract in the summer. There were obviously talks, or there was reports of an extension earlier in the season before Liverpool hit that poor run of form. So I have to see what happens with his contract then. And then obviously if Alonso is out of work still, even if he's not, it depends where he goes, but there is going to be those obvious links. So maybe one to keep an eye on in the mid to long term, but do not expect to see a managerial change anytime soon at Anfield, especially when Arne Slot's just got Liverpool through to the 4th round of the FA Cup. They might not be in the Premier League title race anymore, but they're still in the Champions League and they've still got to go in the FA Cup as well. Brighton, not the easiest game, but it's at home. Who knows what can happen. What other comments have we got? We need some signings in January, says Daniil, to improve the injury situation. It's a weird one, isn't it, with Liverpool for the injuries? Because as I've said, they don't actually have that many outs. Like, yeah, N'Gamoa, potentially now, but he's not someone who's starting games in the Premier League, in the Champions League. He's still very much on the fringes. Isak, yeah, your record signing, your star striker. The only, similar to N'Gamoa, he's just a fringe player, or he would have been a fringe player, he would have been your 4th choice centre-back. And then Conor Bradley, who was potentially the first choice right back, but then you got him vying with Jeremy Frimpong. It's just the fact the squad isn't quite big enough. Like, we knew they would have signed Mark Gay in the summer if they could have done. It was blocked at the 11th hour. They could do with a couple more players here and there, maybe another forward, maybe another midfielder, but this is the squad they've got. We'll have to wait and see if they could go back in for Mark Gay. Personally, I think they need another defender, especially now they've lost Conor Bradley, because Joe Gomez has got his injury issues. We've seen that in the past. And now he is your only backup option at right back and your only backup option at centre back. They've got 6 players to cover 4 defensive positions, and that can leave you incredibly short. You're only one injury really away from a defensive crisis, and we've seen that cripple Liverpool in the past. No suggestion of them going back in for him at the moment. We know he's out of contract at the end of the season. We know they're still interested. They would like to bring him in on that free transfer. We'll have to see if, say, Manchester City make a move for him because of their own centre-back injury crisis, if that would call Liverpool into action. I have had a comment here about Mark Gay, someone asking what's the situation with him, how far with him. So we'll just have to wait and see if that does prompt any change from Liverpool. I personally, as I've said, feel they do need a couple more players, maybe a forward, maybe a centre-back, and then you can look at the midfield situation in the summer. Because, they've had a fair few injuries this season, but it's never been the lengthiest of lists. Certainly not compared to what they used to suffer under Jurgen Klopp. And maybe it felt worse then because so many players are out, but Jurgen Klopp had a bit more strength in the depth in the academy to fill the voids. And you'd say Liverpool's youth options aren't quite as strong now as they maybe were a couple of years ago. Yes, you've got Anyoni, yes, you've got Rio Ngamoa, but it's not like when they had Jarell Quansah, Bobby Clark. You just go on, can you? Curtis Jones was there, Connor Bradley was there when they were younger down, how many years ago back, Harvey Elliott. Yes, some of these have been sold, but Liverpool have had the money to go and sign star players, and this is the point of the academy. If you're not going to be good enough for the first team, you sell them on for a decent profit so you can go and sign quality players, and that is what Liverpool did in the summer. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Any more comments? We need a centre-back very quickly, says Chinmarem. Mutata, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your names, guys. I do apologise. I don't mean to be offensive. Goes, we need lethal attack by wingers. This is what I think by forward. Liverpool do need potentially a winger, someone to replace like Luis Diaz from the summer. Ngamo is there, Chiesa's there, but it's clear that Slot doesn't trust Chiesa. He was taken off on the hour mark after an ineffectual display. It's not quite there, and it's 18 months now. His Liverpool career, I don't think is going to change at this point. He is all right off the bench. He can make an impact, but we're not going to see him be the player he was 4 or 5 years ago when he was winning the Euros with Italy. He just hasn't quite found that yet. Maybe he can elsewhere, but at Liverpool, when he's been limited to this bit part role, it's not going to happen. And Ngamoa could be a quality option in the future, but you have to be patient with him. I did an interview with Michael Owen this week ahead of this game, and Michael Owen obviously burst onto the scene for Liverpool as a 17-year-old, and he was first choice overnight, and he said it's not going to happen with Ngamoa. For starters, Liverpool got players who are better than him in terms of your Mohamed Salahs, your Alexander Isaks, even your Cody Gakpo's, Florian Wirtz's. They're the ones you're going to start. Ngamoa can be your impact option off the bench, but you've still got to be patient with him. He's still a very raw teenager, and I think that's been demonstrated by the fact that we saw him make a really good impact in pre-season, and he's made a really good impact in a couple of games. He did well against Newcastle when he came on, for example. He did pretty well against Leeds when he came on the other week at Anfield. He's done right in a couple of starts, but it is not a consistent level of performance. It's not someone who's performing, delivering lots of goals, lots of assists. He can beat a man, he can link up with his teammates, but you need a bit more for him to be that consistent performer from the start. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with him. He's still very raw, he's still very young, but it does leave Liverpool a little bit short offensively, especially when you think Isak's injured and Mohamed Salah is currently away at the Africa Cup of Nations. But he will be back next week. We know he's going to miss the Burnley game now because Egypt got through to the semi-finals. They will face Sadio Mane and Senegal on Wednesday. Regardless of the result there, they have to be in the tournament until the duration because you've got the third place playoff or the final. And then if Egypt went on to win the tournament, there might be some celebrations. There might be a homecoming back in Egypt, which could see a doubt for the Marseille game. Again, we'll have to wait and see. But Liverpool obviously a little bit short offensively, very short defensively, and we'll have to wait and see with 3 weeks left of the transfer window whether they could bring anyone in. Dave Wood says, you think that the team selected will put in a good performance against a team 17th in League One, another possession-based abysmal performance. Again, that's strong criticism, and maybe it helped that Barnsley tired as they went on, but Liverpool did put together 2 really nice attacking moves for the Wirtz and Ekitike goals late on, and those are your 2 first-choice forwards, aren't they? It's your first-choice striker and your first-choice number 10, especially with Alexander Isak out. So maybe when you've got them 2 combining, we'll see a little bit more from Liverpool in the final third. And the first 2 goals, the wonder goals, the thunderbolts out of absolutely nothing, but they're still Liverpool having the shots on goal and managing to create something and have a really good finish. So yeah, we'll see what else there. Salah to where he is gone, as reported by Fabrizio. It says Mutua. I don't think so. Mohamed Salah's coming back to Liverpool next week. I don't think he's leaving. Certainly not mid-season. Liverpool can't afford to let him go at the moment. And he's having a really good couple of nations. He scored 4 goals in 4 games. Got a goal and an assist in the quarter-final against Ivory Coast. Fingers crossed he can keep that form going for Liverpool. When he gets back, it's suddenly got very windy here in the press box. Team sheets blowing all over the place. We'll have a look at Ian Doyle's player rating. So it's a mixed bag. He gives a couple of 5s out of 10s, and I can already tell you, therefore, they are for Joe Gomez and Federico Chiesa. Lost Caledon for the early Barnsley chance, which hit the post, which I've already told you about, and very rusty with his passing and defending on his first start in a month. Booked and subbed. Chiesa, no faulting his effort or occasional imagination, but he lacked quality with his passing and looked a little short of pace. Subbed. Is there any star players here? I don't think there is. I think the highest rating he gave is 7. Dominic Szoboszlai was on for an 8, I can tell you that, at one point, but then he did his stupid back heel for the Barnsley goal, and that cost him a couple of points, so they managed to get it back up by 1 in the second half. If you want to read indoors player ratings, they are on the Liverpool Echo website, so go and check them out. We'll have a quick look at the stats. As you can tell from one of those comments, we've already seen plenty of Liverpool possession when I can actually open this tab with stats. So yeah, Liverpool had 75% possession, 21 shots, 7 on target, 43 touches in the opposition box. Mamardashvili had to make 2 saves, whereas Mofi Cooper had to make 3. Both sides hit the woodwork once. Liverpool 731 passes to Barnsley's 232, 91.2% accuracy. 207 forward passes to Barnsley's 97. It was a pretty controlled performance from Liverpool, even if it took 2 goals in the final 5-10 minutes to give it the emphatic feel. They were certainly in control before Szoboszlai gifted Adam Phillips, the former Liverpool Academy youngster, a goal. Do you want to go through the FA Cup draw? We might as well go through the FA Cup draw whilst we're here. So we know Liverpool got Brighton. That was the first tie out the hat. Stoke City have Fulham, Oxford United have Sunderland, Southampton host Leicester City, Wrexham host Ipswich Town, Arsenal versus Wigan, Hull City versus Chelsea, Burton Albion versus West Ham United, Burnley versus Mansfield Town, Burnley who Liverpool will be playing this weekend in the next Premier League fixture, Norwich City versus West Bromwich Albion, Port Vale versus Bristol City, Grimsby Town versus Wolverhampton Wanderers, Aston Villa versus Newcastle United, that'll be an exciting all Premier League tie as well, Manchester City versus Salford City or Swindon Town, Macclesfield Town versus Brentford, and Birmingham City versus Leeds United. I'll have another quick look, see if we've got any more comments that have come in. Dave said he played pretty much the first team and relied throwing screamers to beat Barnsley, who are 17th in the 3rd Division, being outplayed by the 17th team in League One with pretty much our first 11. They were not outplayed. I don't agree with that at all. They weren't brilliant, Liverpool, but they were not outplayed. They were passing it around. It was another dullish possession game for the majority, but Barnsley would never look like causing an upset, to be honest with you. They didn't really look like equalising either, even after being gifted the goal by Szoboszlai. And someone goes, Jeffrey goes, was that Dominic error necessary? No, it was completely not unnecessary. It was arrogant from him. It was stupid. Someone who was he's getting very cocky because he scores a screamer, which he doesn't celebrate against League One opposition, but it is something he will learn from. Who'd have thought that Hugo Ekitike getting sent off after scoring against Southampton would no longer be the most stupid moment we saw at Anfield this season. Used Gadget Arena, says it's 6:30am here in Kuala Lumpur and I just woke up. At least we won. Ooh. Yeah, we won. A good win for Liverpool. Not the best performance, as I've said, but a few good goals. If you've not seen the goals, use Gadget Arena, go and find them. They are some beauties from Szoboszlai, from Frimpong. Some nice moves for Ekitike and for Florian Wirtz. Goal scorers you want to see. 3 goal scorers who joined the club in the summer. So it is all coming together nicely. And as I've said, Liverpool will have Mohamed Salah back in the mix next week. Whether he is available to face Marseille, we will have to wait and see. That might be all we have time for it. A shorter Blood Red podcast, post-match podcast, brought to you by Liverpool Echo and the Blood Red podcast and NordVPN than usual. Thanks for all your comments. As I said, a little bit shorter due to the audio issues we've been having to contend with the music over the tannoy here at Anfield, and then many lawnmowers on the pitch. So something we'll have to work on in the future, whether we have to start a little bit later or we can fix the audio a different way. But yeah, as I said, we want the podcast to be as brilliant for you as possible. Thanks to all you guys for tuning in. Thanks to all your comments. I'm actually not at the Burnley game, so we won't have a post-match podcast after Liverpool versus Burnley. Have to have a quick look at the fixture list to see when we'll do the next one. Maybe Karabakh, maybe? Am I looking too far ahead into the future? I think it's Karabakh. There's a few away Premier League games coming up, aren't there? So yeah, I'm not at Burnley. Obviously not at Marseille. Karabakh on the 28th of January is the next one. And then I don't think we're doing one for Newcastle because we'll be a bit short on staff. Apologies for that. We have to contend with a bit of rotation there at the end of January. But then Manchester City, 8th of February. You can count on one then. And then whenever the FA Cup fourth round game against Brighton is, hopefully we'll be able to bring you one there too. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all your comments. Really appreciate the support. I've been Theo Squires, and you've been listening to the Post-Match Podcast brought to you by the Liverpool Echo in association with our sponsors, NordVPN.